Please welcome Mr. Trevor Loudon.
Thank you very much, and look, it's great to be here. Great to meet Chris again, and some Mike Gear over there, and several other people I know. Reagan always said you should start with a funny story, and I had an incident in Los Angeles recently. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you understand the southern accent? Okay. I was in Los Angeles. I went to a street vendor and I bought some food, and the guy said to me, "Oh, you have an accent." I said, "Yes, I'm from New Zealand." He said, "Well, where's that?" And I said, "Well, it's down by Australia." He said, "Oh, where Arnold Schwarzenegger comes from." It's common core geography, folks. So what I've been doing the last 3 years, I've been touring your country, talking to groups. Your government gives me 90-day visas to visit here, but I'm very tempted to stay for 91 days because apparently I'll get a free cell phone, healthcare. What a wonderful country. You know? People always say to me, why do I care about America? I say there are two reasons. The first is simple gratitude. My country was saved from invasion by the Japanese in World War II by the massive sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway. Without that sacrifice, we would have been done, folks. And that is a very strong memory in my country today. The second reason is related but a little more selfish. Ronald Reagan had it right. This is the last best hope for mankind. If freedom should fail in the United States, if you lose your constitution, your liberty, your economic dynamism, and your military superiority, all of which are in grave danger, the bad guys of this planet, I'm talking Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, North Korea, and their Islamic allies, they will carve up this globe amongst themselves. We're already seeing this playing out right now, folks. We have a situation on the planet now where your allies are freaking out. They are looking at what your president is doing to Israel. Israel, your staunchest ally for decades, is being sold out by your president in favor of Iran, a sponsor of state terrorism, which is sworn to destroy the one bastion of freedom in the Middle East. Your president wants to form an alliance with Iran. The nuclear deal is just a first step. He actually wants Iran to be the dominant power in the Middle East. Iran is partnered with Russia and China. This is part of the evil axis, and Mr. Obama wants to promote it. Now, your allies are thinking, well, look, if Mr. Obama would sell out Israel, what's to stop him selling us out too? If this goes through, the Western alliance will crumble. It's already very, very shaky. Your allies are looking at America. One of the first acts that Obama did when he came to office was cancel a missile shield that was going to protect Poland and Czechoslovakia from the Russians. Then they saw him abandon Georgia to the Russians. Then they saw him sell out Egypt, Mubarak, to the Muslim Brotherhood. And they saw his reaction when the Muslim Brotherhood was kicked out. And now they're looking at the Ukraine, folks. The Ukraine has a treaty. The Ukraine has a treaty signed in your Senate under Bill Clinton, guaranteeing that country American protection in the event of Russian military aggression. They gave up their nuclear arsenal in exchange for an American promise. And now that they need it, folks, where is it? So far, Obama has sent a few $1 million worth of non-lethal aid. He gave $2 billion to India recently for smart cities. But he has sent them John Kerry to help out. Who's John Kerry, folks? He's basically Jane Fonda with less testosterone. And to be fair, though, he has instituted some sanctions on rich Russians to terrify Mr. Putin. I saw a rally in Moscow the other day, downtown, pro-Putin. A woman held up a sign that really exemplified their attitude to those sanctions. The sign said, "Your pornography is harder than your sanctions." So they're not very scared of you, folks. You've got a situation now in the world where your allies are backing away from you. Your enemies are getting stronger and stronger every day. And Obama is gutting your military. He has abandoned Reagan's doctrine of peace through strength. And what happens when you lose your strength, folks? What happens to your peace? Would people be dying in the Ukraine today? Would ISIS be committing atrocities in the Middle East? Would China be building a big blue water navy in the Pacific? Would Iran be threatening Israel? Would any of that be happening today if you had a Reagan in the White House? But people are dying, folks. The world is on the edge of war because this country has twice elected an anti-American president. And it ain't just Obama, folks. My books, which are, one of them is available outside. I can sign them for you. My book is The Enemies Within, Communists, Socialists and Progressives in the US Congress. And just as it says, the book details the Marxist origins of Obamacare, the Marxist origins of gutting your military. It profiles 51 members of your House and 14 senators who would not pass a basic FBI security clearance to clean the toilets at any military base in your country. And neither would your president, by the way. Now, the book is really about the two big secrets of modern communism. The first secret, I think they borrowed from the devil, because we all know that the cleverest thing the devil ever did was to convince people he doesn't exist. And what have the communists been telling you in the last 20 years, folks? Pretty much the same, right? Well, you can trust them about as much as you can trust the devil. But the other big... Sorry about my voice, folks. I did a rally outside the Capitol yesterday in about 2 degrees. The other big secret of modern communism, which is hardly ever discussed in any of the thousands of books on the subject, it is the ability of a tiny Marxist-Leninist party, maybe only a few hundred comrades strong. It is their ability to influence and even control the legislative process in their country. In other words, to write the laws. What I'm saying is less than 20,000 card-carrying communists in America are now writing the laws that control the lives of more than 300 million Americans. A little bit far-fetched, isn't it? The vehicle they mainly use is control of the labour movement. Now, you were very lucky in this country for a long time because your AFL-CIO was run by hardcore anti-communists like Lane Kirkland and George Meany. But that all changed in 1995, folks. Massive political change in your body politic, and I guarantee most of you never heard a word about it. That was the year that Democratic Socialists of America, your largest Marxist group, that was the year the Gramsciist communists, that was the year they took over the AFL-CIO. They kicked out Lane Kirkland, and they put their member, John Sweeney, in as president. They took over every single major labour union in the country, and from that point, they mounted a purge inside the Democratic Party. They kicked out all the moderates, the Dixiecrats, the centrists, the Southern Conservatives. Joe Lieberman, the senator from Connecticut, was the last one to go, and now they own that party, folks. They own the Democratic Party. 20,000 communists own the unions. The unions own the Democrats. This is not the old game, folks. This is not the old liberal Republican versus liberal Democrat versus conservative Republican game. This is Marxism working through the Democratic Party. The process is very simple. The Marxists set a policy. It might be socialisation of student loans, card check, cap and trade, green jobs, normalisation of relations with Cuba, a New START treaty with Russia, Obamacare, all communist policies. The communists make these union policies and the unions make them Democrat policy. There's not a single policy in today's Democratic Party that can be distinguished from the platform of the Communist Party USA or Democratic Socialists of America. They're completely setting the agenda, folks. Now, I want to give an example of how this works in practice. And this is an example that has divided the conservative movement, libertarian movement. I'm going to talk about immigration reform, otherwise known as amnesty. Now, you have Republicans, people, telling you that this is going to be good for the GOP. Because if you give 11 or 12 or 20 million illegals citizenship and voting rights, they're all going to be so grateful they'll all become staunch Republicans, right? Just delusional, folks. We know that the Latinos, who are the bulk of the illegals, are very socially conservative, but they vote overwhelmingly Democrat. They may change in 20 or 30 years, which is what the Republican Party thinks, or the leadership of it thinks. But we don't have 20 or 30 years, folks. We have 2 years. We have 2 years to save this republic. They ain't going to change in significant numbers in that time. So why do Republicans tell you this is good for the GOP? Could it be connected to the fact that the US Chamber of Commerce has spent more than $1.7 billion promoting amnesty in the last 10 years? What do you think the Chamber wants out of it, guys? Is it hard to figure out? Cheap labour. Very simple. They're looking at profits. And as Lenin famously said, the capitalists will sell us the rope with which to hang them. They're looking at profits, that's all. They don't care about your border integrity, your national security, or the rule of law in your land. But the real driver of this, folks, is the hard left. This started out with a Communist Party member in California in the 50s named Bert Corona. He was also a Democrat. He set up the Viva Kennedy clubs, the first organised effort to bring Latinos into the Democratic Party. He set up a big network through the Southwest and Southern California of groups designed to support illegal immigration. These groups encouraged illegals across the border, got them work in factories and farms, got them citizenship and voting. The voting was the goal, people. Now, Mr. Corona trained a whole bunch of disciples to carry on his work. 3 of them are very active today in Southern California and have transformed that state. The first one is Antonio Villagrosa, until recently the mayor of Los Angeles. A hardcore Marxist, he used to go down to Cuba to cut sugarcane for the Castro brothers. He turned Los Angeles into a sanctuary city. He forbade the LAPD from enforcing immigration laws, and the illegals flooded in the hundreds of thousands. Changed the entire demographics of the state. Second member of this group, Gil Cedillo, a Communist Party supporter, until recently the Democratic head of the California State Senate. A big-time amnesty activist. He is the man who got the DREAM Act pushed through in California about 3 years ago, which gave all sorts of so-called rights to the children of what they euphemistically term undocumented workers. Third member of this group, the most powerful woman in Southern California, Maria Elena Durazzo, a Marxist, the head of the California AFL-CIO. She is behind the massive union-driven and union-paid-for Latino voter registration drives and get out the vote efforts that have added hundreds of thousands of new Latino voters to the California rolls in the last 15 years, almost all of them Democrats. The result of this deliberate Marxist program has been to turn California from a reddish, bluish, reddish, purplish state to solidly blue. All of the electoral college votes from California, your most populous state, now go to the Democrats, guaranteed. Very important in any presidential election. Now, the leader of this movement today is a man called Eliseo Medina. I guarantee you've seen him on TV wearing a purple shirt leading an amnesty rally. He was, until recently, the head of the SEIU union. He is a member of Democratic Socialists of America, supports the Communist Party, served on Obama's Latino Advisory Committee with several other Marxists, works very closely with Luis Gutierrez, the Democratic rep from Illinois, who is driving amnesty through the House, or tried to, and also has been consulted by Obama many times before Obama started this latest push for amnesty. When Gutierrez could not get the bill through the House, he pressured Obama to do this through executive orders. Gutierrez, Medina, well, here's a question. Sorry about my voice, folks. Which organization in the United States 25 years ago was leading the charge against illegal immigration? Against. Labor, the AFL-CIO, because they saw that undocumented workers or illegals were unfair competition for union workers and would drive wages and conditions down. So which organisation in the country today is leading the charge to legalise the illegals? The unions. So why were illegals bad for union workers 25 years ago, but now they're okay? The answer is simple. Before 1995, the unions were there to represent the interests of their members and make their leaders rich. Since 1995, when they were taken over by the Communist Party USA and Democratic Socialists of America, their agenda is now socialist revolution. The illegals are real bad for union workers, folks. They do cost jobs, but they're great for the revolution. The union leaders are selling out their own members right now because the revolution comes first, folks. And it took Eliseo Medina 5 years of hardcore lobbying inside the AFL-CIO to get them to flip their vote from anti-illegal, their policies from anti-illegal to pro-illegal, which he achieved at their national convention in Louisiana in 2000. It ain't easy to get union members to vote directly against their own interest, people, but the Marxists achieved that goal. But the big question is this: why does he want it? Medina let the cat out of the bag at a big progressive conference in Washington, D.C. 3 years ago. He got up in front of the comrades and said this. I've got him on tape. I quote him in my book. Passing an immigration bill, amnesty, is the number one priority of the progressive movement. We have to get citizenship and voting rights for our 11 million undocumented workers. And did he talk about compassion or reuniting families or helping the economy? Not a single word, folks. All he said was this: In 2008, Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Obama and progressive candidates. If we stand by these people and get them citizenship and voting rights, they will stand with our movement. That will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party votes. That will give us a governing majority, not just for the next few election cycles, but for the foreseeable future. In other words, forever. Mitt Romney lost by 2.5 million votes, folks. 8 million more Democratic Party votes. How is the Republican Party going to counter that one, folks? The first thing that happens is that Texas will go blue. And if you take the Electoral College votes from Texas, your second most populous state, add them to the Electoral College votes of California, which they've already got through illegal immigration, do the math, people, add the totals. It makes it practically impossible for the Republicans to ever elect another president, ever. One-party state, folks. That is why Obama is risking so much political capital on this crazy executive amnesty move. Even his own base don't like it. But Obama knows that that will give the Democrats a one-party state. And that will be led by the unions and the communists. And if you think the Democrats are arrogant now, people, what do you think they'd be like with 8 million more votes in their pockets and the Republicans permanently out of office? Would it be just the IRS they send after their enemies? Would this country become like France or Germany, as some naive conservatives will try to tell you? Or to become like Venezuela pretty damn quickly and Cuba not long after? Because that is the plan, folks. That is why they are doing this. And you have Republicans, people, telling you this is good for the GOP. These are not stupid people telling you this. They can add up numbers. I bet you they know exactly the totals of the checks they got from the Chamber of Commerce. Yet they are willing to give the Democrats 8 million more votes, knowing what the consequences will be. What do you call people, folks, who sell out their own party and their own country for filthy lucre? And you people in this room contributed to the demise of one of those traitors, Eric Cantor, when you helped to support David Bratt in his victory in Virginia. A great victory, folks. Just another little point before I close. If you apply for a federal government job in this country, even the lowest levels, you need an FBI security clearance, right? And they are very thorough. They go through your underwear drawers. Because this is a federal government, the heart of the free world. This country has enemies who will use your weak and dishonest against you. They need to trust you. But what happens if you're a young Marxist radical who hangs around with the Communist Party and they control the local unions and the local Democratic Party? Someone like Raul Grijalva or Barbara Lee or John Conyers or Eddie Bernice Johnson or Jan Schakowsky or Jerry Nadler or Tammy Baldwin or Patty Murray. And they can get you elected to Congress where you can serve on the Homeland Security Committee, the Science and Technology Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Judiciary Committee, even the Intelligence Committee, just as Marxist and Muslim Brotherhood affiliate Andre Carson was just put on the Intelligence Committee. You can have access to all sorts of government secrets at the highest levels and the ability to influence public policy on not just a national level, but an international level. How much of an FBI security check does that one take, folks? 0. And do you think your enemies do not use that against you? All those hundreds of foreign intelligence officers up in the United Nations, Cubans, Iranians, Chinese, Russians, with networks in your labour movement and the communist parties of this country. They have the ability to elect their sympathisers to your Congress almost at will. Do you think your enemies do not use that against you? Do you not think you have traitors in your own Congress, your own Senate? People, the most important legislators in the Western world are doing all sorts of crazy things against your Constitution every day. There are no security checks, and many of those people are in regular contact with the enemies of this country. And nobody says boo, folks. What's the penalty for treason, people? Yet this is happening every day, and nobody says a damn thing. You have got at least 100 members of your House and 20 members of your Senate, as I said, who could not pass an FBI security check to clean the toilets at any military base in your country, and neither could your president. Do you think that could be an issue? Do you think the Russians would tolerate 100 pro-Americans in their Duma? Do you think the Cubans would tolerate 100 pro-Americans in their parliament? That's what you're doing though, folks, every day. So I'll call it quits there, and I'll put it up for questions if anybody has one.